Imagine standing around a fire. It is 50,000 years ago. The sun just went down. There is no internet, there are no cities, there is no anxiety about tomorrow. There is just you, the dark, and the flames. The thick, choking smoke curls directly into your face. For hundreds of thousands of years, this was the human experience. We sat near fires and we breathed the smoke. But somewhere, at some point, one of our ancestors looked at that burning smoke and thought, what if I did this on purpose? This is the story of how humans discovered smoking. Not modern cigarettes, not the addictive habit sold in bright boxes today. We are talking about the very first time a human being intentionally inhaled a burning plant. Why did they do it? The answer is not what you think. Nobody tells you this, but smoking did not start with agriculture or trade. The desire to inhale smoke might be hardwired into us. It might be an instinct so deep that it predates civilization entirely. To understand the first smoker, we have to start with fire. Before you can smoke anything, you need a flame, and fire has been part of the human story for a very, very long time. The oldest confirmed evidence of controlled fire dates back roughly 1 million years. In a place called Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found burnt plant ash and charred bone. This was not a wild forest fire. This was a contained, deliberate fire inside a cave. 1 million years ago, we were not even Homo sapiens yet. That was Homo erectus, our ancient cousin. They had smaller brains and heavy brows, but they sat around fires just like we do. They cooked, they stayed warm, and they breathed smoke every single day. It was unavoidable. But here's where the story gets strange. Some of that smoke was not just wood. When you burn organic matter, you release a complex cocktail of chemical compounds, and if you happen to throw the wrong or right weed into the fire, something else happens entirely. Certain plants, like wild cannabis or ancient tobacco, contain psychoactive chemicals. They interact directly with the human nervous system. This means that early humans were absolutely, entirely by accident, getting high around the campfire. And they had no idea why they suddenly felt amazing. This is not a wild guess. Researchers believe that early humans living in wild environments would have regularly been exposed to the smoke of psychoactive plants. The human brain actually has built-in receptors that respond to these chemicals. These receptors did not evolve because of cannabis. They're part of our internal system that regulates mood, memory, and appetite. But it means that when a human first inhaled that strange smoke around a prehistoric campfire, their brain was not confused. Their brain recognized it. That first accidental hit of magic smoke around a prehistoric campfire might be the true origin of smoking. Not a plan, just a pleasant accident, repeated enough times until someone learned how to control it. But why did we keep doing it? Anthropologists take a specific theory very seriously. It's called the Intoxication Hypothesis. Across virtually every human culture ever documented, people have looked for ways to alter their consciousness. They have fermented drinks, eaten strange mushrooms, and inhaled smoke. This behavior is so universal that researchers believe the pursuit of intoxication is a core biological drive. It sits right alongside hunger, thirst, and the need for sleep. It's not just a human trait. Elephants deliberately seek out fermented fruit. Reindeer in Siberia have been observed eating psychoactive mushrooms. The drive to alter our reality is ancient, so it is entirely reasonable to think that early humans, long before they had pipes or pottery, deliberately burned certain plants just to breathe the air. But when did this accidental campfire magic turn into actual smoking? If we look at the archaeology, the physical evidence is stunning. In the high, freezing Pamir Mountains of Central Asia, archaeologists opened an ancient cemetery dating back 2,500 years. Inside the tombs, they found wooden braziers, bowls used for heating stones. Chemical analysis showed that mourners placed wild cannabis on the superheated stones to inhale the thick smoke. This was not wild hemp used for rope. It had unusually high psychoactive properties, and it was used during a sacred funeral ritual. This perfectly matches the writings of Herodotus, an ancient Greek historian. In the 5th century BC, he described a nomadic tribe called the Scythians. The Scythians were fierce horse-riding warriors. They didn't build grand cities, they lived in the wild open spaces of the earth. But even they sought the comfort of the smoke. Herodotus wrote that they would set up small enclosed tents, heat stones, and throw hemp seeds onto them. They would sit inside the tent, inhaling the smoke, and, in his exact words, howling with pleasure. For centuries, historians thought he was exaggerating, but the dirt proved he was telling the absolute truth. And then there's tobacco. Tobacco is a plant native to the Americas. It was completely unknown to the rest of the world until the late 15th century. When European explorers arrived, they saw indigenous people holding small glowing sticks, inhaling the dried leaves. The Europeans were baffled, but within weeks they were doing it too. But the history of tobacco goes back incredibly far. In the Great Salt Lake Desert of Utah, at a place called the Wishbone Site, archaeologists found an ancient hearth. Inside the ashes were the charred seeds of wild tobacco. Carbon dating revealed exactly when that fire burned. It was 12,300 years ago. At the end of the last ice age, humans were already gathering tobacco and throwing it into fires. But the absolute difference between then and now is this. To ancient indigenous cultures, tobacco was not a casual habit, it was profoundly sacred. Tobacco was used in healing rituals. It was used to communicate with the spirit world. Blowing smoke on someone was an act of blessing and respect. The smoke was viewed as a living messenger. It traveled between the physical world and the divine, carrying prayers up to the sky. When a shaman smoked, he was opening a bridge to the gods. You don't chain smoke something that is sacred while waiting for a bus. The idea of tobacco as a cheap recreational habit is almost entirely modern. In fact, for most of human history, smoking was medicine. The Ebers Papyrus, one of the oldest medical documents from ancient Egypt, dates to 1500 BC. It describes treating lung and throat problems by inhaling the smoke of heated herbs. To a modern mind, treating lung issues with smoke sounds completely insane. But the specific herbs they used actually had real pharmacological properties. The idea of inhaling the smoke of burning herbs was deeply rooted in the belief that the breath of the plant could physically push illness out of the human body. The ancient Greeks did the same thing. Ancient Indian Ayurvedic medicine describes smoke drinking to clear the body. They used the lungs as a direct delivery system for medicine. And in a world with no hospitals and no painkillers, it worked well enough that they kept doing it for thousands of years. Smoking was also a vital tool for human connection. We are deeply social animals. For early humans, survival depended entirely on the group. Anything that built trust and deep connection was a matter of life and death. When a group of ancient people sat together in a closed tent, breathing in sacred smoke and entering an altered state of mind, they were building profound bonds. Shared rituals synchronize human brain activity. They build the kind of trust that allows a tribe to survive a brutal winter. The ancient smoke circle was not a party, it was survival infrastructure. The tragedy of smoking only began a few hundred years ago. When tobacco was taken from its sacred roots, it was handed over to European industrialists. Within centuries, what had been a deeply respected spiritual tool was turned into a mass-market product. In the 20th century, tobacco companies added chemicals to maximize addiction. They engineered the ancient smoke to be as destructive and profitable as possible. The gap between an ancient shaman using smoke to heal and a modern company using it to hook teenagers is one of the darkest shifts in human history. We'll never know the name of the exact first human who intentionally breathed the smoke, but the behavior is older than farming. It's older than writing. It's an unbroken thread running through 100,000 years of human experience: fire, smoke, and breath.
The earliest humans sat around fires and breathed the same smoky air you smell at a campfire today. Eventually, they realized the smoke could change their minds. It could numb their pain. It could connect them to the gods. And they chose to breathe it in. So the next time you smell wood smoke in the cold night air, remember how deep the story goes. We have always wanted to change how it feels to be